Hello and welcome to another episode of the Agency Leadership Podcast. I'm Chip Griffin.
And I'm Gini Dietrich.
And Ginny, I think maybe I'll just start sending you direct messages on LinkedIn from now on. That's the only way I'll communicate with you.
Awesome. Well, that's one way.
It's one way. The
I
problem
might
is
not get back to you immediately, but
I was going to say, if you respond to me, I probably will not see it because I get so much spam in my LinkedIn direct messages that I very rarely actually look at them. And usually as soon as I do, I will tell whoever legitimate is reaching out to me that I do want to talk to. Here's my email address. Send me an email.
Yeah.
We can pick it up over there because you'll get a much more timely response from me.
Do you accept all LinkedIn connection requests?
I do not.
Okay.
Years ago, I used to do that, but then I got flooded with just a bunch of junk. And nowadays, so many spammers just obvious spammers are trying to connect. So at this point, I'm looser than I used to be in that I don't only connect with people who I actually know.
Yeah.
I will also connect with agency owners, for example, if they appear to be, operating a legitimate agency and not one who's trying to spam me. Sometimes I guess wrong, and then all of a sudden I've opened up my inbox to nonsensical pitches. But most of the time I'm pretty good at guessing. It's tough. I mean, LinkedIn is a great platform. And these days it's one of the few where you can actually communicate professionally because X/Twitter has it has deteriorated.
Yep.
It's become sort of a little bit of business and lots of cesspool.
Definitely a dumpster fire.
So, as useful as it used to be, it is not useful today. So I thought it would be helpful if we talked about LinkedIn and thought about how are agencies using it? How can agencies use it? Not so much on behalf of their clients, but on behalf of themselves, growing their business, learning, all that kind of thing. And I think there are some do's and don'ts. I think we can share some things from our experience that we've seen work and that we have seen not work so much, and things that frankly irritate us. We'll certainly mix those things in.
Of course, because we're not us without.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't complain about something,
right. Yes,
people would think that they were listening to a different podcast.
Right.
So plenty of wine with this episode.
Plenty of wine. I do love the wine. There was actually a Spin Sucks community discussion about this. And somebody had posted, are you using LinkedIn in a way that's different from your content on the blog, or is it the same? And I think it started a really nice conversation because I think, to our tagline, it depends, right? For me, I do use the same content, but what I do is I write first for PR firm or PR professionals, communicators, because that's our target audience on the Spin Sucks side. And so that's who I write for first. But then when I repost, usually about 2 months later, to LinkedIn, I rejigger the content to be focused on the business leader. So while I might talk about with a PR professional, I might talk about the things that you should do to prepare your CEO to speak out on politics or to take a stance on their values, I'll rejigger that content so that it's to the business leader to talk about, here are the things that you should be thinking about. So it's I don't have to do a complete rewrite, but I do have to switch it up a little bit to be more focused on the audience there. I have seen some, like Martin Waxman and Andy Cristodina, they both create content for their blogs and then just do a complete repurpose on LinkedIn. Same day that it's published to the blog, it publishes to LinkedIn and it's the same content. Different audiences, maybe not the same subscribers. There might be some overlap, but I think that they're just doing a complete like just copy and paste essentially. So I think there are pros and cons, and it depends on your audiences, right? If your audience for the blog is the same as the audience in LinkedIn, then that probably makes sense. But if it's not, then you should think about who your audience is for both places.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can make sense to split them, even if it is a similar audience, because then you can have an opportunity to have another bite at the apple, right? So if you post to your blog and someone is busy that week or on vacation or something like that, and then you post on LinkedIn, 3-4 weeks later or a month or two later, well, now they've got another opportunity to see it. So I think personally that there is some value in splitting out content. The place where I don't do that is with my newsletter. So with my email newsletter, I do match that up with LinkedIn. Usually LinkedIn's a little bit delayed by half a day or so from the email. Honestly, that's more because I post manually to LinkedIn and we've scheduled it
Right.
with
Right.
with
Right.
email.
Right.
So
Yep.
that timing really depends on what my day looks like on Fridays when I post it. And occasionally I don't get to it and it doesn't go up till Saturday because it's a manual post. But I do think that repurposing content in some fashion is beneficial. The other thing that I do is I will test things on LinkedIn. So I will write a shorter
Mhm.
version of something that I'm
Mhm.
thinking about writing a longer piece on and just kind of throw it out there, see if it gets any reaction. If it doesn't get any, that doesn't mean necessarily I won't pursue it. But if it gets a strong reaction, lots of feedback, then it makes it much more likely I bubble it up higher in my queue to do a full article on.
That's a really good idea. That's a good best practice, I think, for agencies. There are some people who are doing a really nice job there. I think there are some that I started out thinking they were doing a nice job, but then it got to be overwhelming because it was multiple times a day or at least daily, which I think is too much because the algorithm isn't like the other places where it's showing you people you don't know. The algorithm on LinkedIn is still showing you people you know, which is great, or people that you follow, which is great. That's what it should do. But it also gives you content from those same people quite a lot, and you're just like every time I open LinkedIn, there's one person there all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Like you're smart, but I don't need to see you 25 times a day.
Ooh, I think I know who that is,
Yes,
but
you do know who it is.
I will let that. I've actually got a couple of those who are multiple times a day posters, and so my feed tends to be fairly inundated with them all, and not necessarily always in a timely fashion. I think right now as we record this, the LinkedIn algorithm seems to prefer not more than one post a day, as far as actually getting broad distribution. And I can tell you from looking at my own numbers it seems to be
Seems to be
anecdotally backed up that on days where I do more than one, they both suffer, or all of them suffer
interesting.
if I do
Interesting.
more than two. Um, that said, LinkedIn will keep posts around for a fairly long
Yeah,
period of
it
time.
does. Yep.
So, I don't necessarily think you even need to be certainly I don't think you need to post multiple times a day. I think
No,
if you've got the urge to be creating that much content on LinkedIn, that's fine, but do the other things as comments because those will also bubble up in feeds.
they do bubble up.
Right. But you have the added benefit that you're engaging with someone else who's got a different audience than you do. So your folks will still see it because it will say Chip Griffin commented on. And so they're still seeing your thoughts, they're still seeing you being active. And so to me, my advice would be if you want to be that active on LinkedIn, that's great. Just use it in the comment field as opposed to creating fresh posts, every 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say though on the comments that I have noticed this on my own content that there are a certain number of agencies, a handful of agencies, who have maybe said to their team, somebody on their team, you're in charge of LinkedIn, and I got advice to be commenting on content. So I'd like you to read these people and then comment on their content as the agency. Nothing wrong with that. However, there are some that are having AI analyze the content, provide a synopsis, and then write the comment. And as the person who is receiving the comment, I can tell that that's what's happening. I know every single time if that's what's happened. And it, quite honestly, it makes your agency look dumb. Like it doesn't provide any value. It doesn't provide any thought leadership. It doesn't provide any value, and there's no ability for us to engage because it's literally a robot who has created it. So I will say that if you take the extra time to write a thoughtful comment that allows for engagement, especially on content where it's an influencer that's going to do business with you, it's a journalist, it's a prospect, somebody who you'd love to do work with, writing comments that are thoughtful and interesting are going to be so much more effective than having the AI summarize the content for you and write the comment. Please don't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, look, LinkedIn works best, like most social platforms, when you're being genuine and authentic, to overuse that term that's been around for as long as social media has been. And so you need to be directly engaging with people in a way that you're able to demonstrate what you actually think and who you actually are.
Right.
I mean, it's okay to show a bit of your personality. So if you see
Yes.
my comments on LinkedIn, there's probably going to be a little bit of snark, sarcasm, and humor in there because that's
Right.
generally what I do. And
Right.
and so if I don't have that, then I'm probably too tired that day to put that effort in. Who knows? Um, but it shouldn't read like AI. It shouldn't be something you have an intern do. It should be
Right.
something that you are doing personally, even if that means you do a lot less of it, because it really is about the quality of it, not the quantity of it. And speaking of quantity, these folks who like to spam tag people in their posts,
Oh,
right? Where they put together a post and
yes.
there are two ways. There's the really awful way, which is at the end they post like 3 paragraphs, and at the end they just have a long list of people that
Yes.
they're tagging.
Yes.
That I find to be utterly obnoxious.
Yes.
And
I
it really
100% agree.
and I 99.9% of the time will not take the bait. If I get tagged, I will not comment. I will ignore you. Just stop it. Other people will do it where they tag a bunch of people, but it's in the they do it in the text. Like, well, Chip said this and Ginny said that. And
Yep. Yep.
I,
Okay.
if it actually fits, okay, but I don't see the need to just chock it full of it. I mean, sometimes I will share, as I did actually over the weekend. I shared an article that Sharon Torek wrote on
Mhm.
classification of independent contractors, and I tagged her in that because
Mhm.
that's the right thing to do. I mean,
Sure. Right.
she had a great resource. I was
Yep.
pointing the resource out and
Yep.
directing people to it. That makes sense. Now, if I had done that and then tagged every other lawyer in the agency field, or every other HR person in the agency field, I mean, to me,
Yeah.
that would be silly and not productive. So be thoughtful about it. Absolutely tag people when it's relevant, but don't just tag people so that you hope to trick the algorithm or bait people into commenting or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm the same way where I'm just like, "Oh, come on. Really?" And then you read the comment or the content and you're like, "I don't know why you tagged me in this." Like
Right.
ah,
Right.
yes. Yeah, it's
Right.
it's playing on their audience, which I think is shady.
Yeah. And I mean, and occasionally, if you're trying to be provocative, you know that I don't know, you know that I'm opposed to RFPs. You post something, pro RFP, and then you tag me, so what do you think? I don't love that either, but at least it kind of makes
It
sense
makes
in that
sense. Right.
context.
Right.
And sometimes I will take the bait on that because I can't help
Can't
being,
help yourself.
no, I can't help myself. Um,
Now
so,
everyone knows the secret.
so
Just
speaking,
post that RFPs are great.
yeah, there you go. Uh, anyway, please don't do that. Um,
I'll give you a list of things you can post about and tag him.
it's probably better to give them a list of things that won't get me riled up because I am easily provoked. In any case, so speaking of being provoked and not necessarily being thoughtful in what you post, let's talk about politics. And I don't mean let's actually talk about politics, but should people be talking about politics on LinkedIn? Because I mean, I have seen a lot more political posts in my LinkedIn feed in the past few months than probably my entire history of being on LinkedIn. I mean, political stuff used to be relegated to primarily to Twitter, maybe a little
Sure,
bit on Facebook, but
sure.
LinkedIn was pretty much a politics and religion free zone. And it seems like it is, perhaps because Twitter has its issues, people have decided that, well, might as well share it here. Or maybe it's that people are buying into this whole concept that people want to know what companies think, which I think is rubbish, by the way. I don't think people want to know what companies think on issues.
I think that I probably this is probably a topic for a different day. I think that people want to understand if I am pro-choice, I want to understand if you are donating money to anti-abortion organizations. I think that people do want to know that. And I see this with the kids a lot where they're like, I'm not going to, they won't go to Chick-fil-A. They will not go to Chick-fil-A because they understand that it does not support their values. Doesn't matter how good their French fries are, these kids will not go to Chick-fil-A. So that's neither here nor there. What I think the challenge is you can talk about things that are happening in the world without making it political. So instead of like Sticker Mule, who a couple of weeks ago sent an email saying, "Oh, everybody's mad because Trump's a bad guy, and I don't think he's a bad guy. I think that we should be able to support him and go Trump and here buy a T-shirt." Like, that's not the right way to do it. If you want to talk about the fact that there was an assassination attempt on him and that we should call for unity, and this is the way that our country is divided is ridiculous, that's a different message. But saying that I support Trump and I'm scared to say that because I think people are going to come after me is not the right message. So when you think about, and this goes for your clients too, like when you think about how you're going to position it, think about it less from a political standpoint and more from it's a value or it's a stance or it's like the issue. Like, I'm against climate change and I think we should do X, Y, and Z. I'm against guns and I think that we should have gun control because of X, Y, and Z. So it's less about the politics and more about the issues. I think that some people do it well and some people don't. Sticker mule is a great example of not doing it well at all.
So I think we should add this to our list of topics for a future conversation, talking more about politics generally and what agencies or should do, how they should advise clients, that kind of stuff. Because even though our own politics here are somewhat meshed, I think that my views of how you can talk about politics and whether you should talk about politics may be a bit different than most people. So I think that's probably a worthwhile conversation.
All right.
And out of the corner of my eye, I can see you already typing it into our
do.
shared Google Doc where we have topics. So, but I think when it comes to LinkedIn, I think you do need to be careful about talking about politics, period, because it is not the conventional thing to discuss on politics or to discuss on LinkedIn. So if you are going to do it, you need to be really thoughtful about it because it jumps out at you a lot more when you see it there.
Sure.
And so the reactions are likely to be stronger as a result. If you see someone commenting on politics on Twitter, you're like, of course, that's what they do, and maybe you kind of move on. You see it on LinkedIn, and if you disagree with it in particular, you are likely to have an even stronger reaction, I think, than if you saw the exact same thing posted by the exact same person on another platform. So just be mindful of that if you're going to talk about politics on LinkedIn. So in general, I would encourage you not to. I don't think that, unless it is core to your business, like if you're running an advocacy firm or something, advocacy agency, of course, sure, talk about politics, right? I mean, that's your key audience. But really think about whether your audience wants to be hearing you chatting about politics on LinkedIn. So that would be my general advice there. But I think
generally I would agree with that.
But we can look at the topic more broadly as well in a future episode, because I think particularly as we get deeper into political season here in the U.S., how we're acting as agencies and leaders and how we're advising our clients, we need to be thoughtful about that too, because there are a lot of things to take into consideration.
Yeah.
But back to LinkedIn. So, the other area that we started the conversation here was on direct messaging on LinkedIn. And so, how do you go about using direct messages properly on LinkedIn?
So I've actually noticed a big increase in DMing with journalists on LinkedIn, which has never happened. And probably in the last 30 or 45 days, I've gotten more requests there via DM from journalists than anywhere else. So I would say, number one, pay attention to that, especially for PR firms, because that seems to be where people are going. I also read a Columbia Journalism Institute article that said they're going to Reddit as well. So that's another thing, but that's not the topic of today. But I've seen a big increase in that. I've seen a big increase in inviting guests for podcasting and things like that. And I've seen a gigantic increase in and we've talked about this before, we can get you 10 to 12 new clients a month. Can we set that up for you? Like, no, I don't want 10 to 12 new clients a month. No, stop it. I mean, I probably get 10 of those a day, which is crap.
Yeah. Well, and my favorite is I haven't heard back from you on this. Now you get that more in email, because LinkedIn, at least if it's in mail, you can't hit someone repeatedly. Email, I get it all the time where people will follow up a few days later. I haven't heard back from you on this.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not going to, because it's
you're not going to
dumbass request, and I'm not paying any attention to it.
Right.
The same thing with people want to be guests on this podcast on something that's not even related to agencies. We have never had a guest. We've been doing this for 6 years now. We have never had a single guest. So don't pitch me on and by the way, if you're going to, make it relevant to agencies at least.
Right. Yeah. I got one this morning that was I stopped by your facility over the weekend and noticed you could use a cleaning crew. Oh, did you know?
Cleaning services are it's unbelievable.
Okay.
Like, Who is out there that's
I
running these
don't
janitorial
know.
service campaigns that spam people?
Yeah,
Because I get it on every email account
it's
for
so
all of my
weird.
businesses right now. I mean, do you need janitorial? No, I don't have an office
No.
for
Right.
any of the businesses. I don't care which. And the funny thing is, I will get like 3 of them in a row because I have multiple websites for the different businesses and they all
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get
yeah.
spammed at the same time. Like, come on, guys. This is
Oh,
just stupid.
that's
Please
stupid.
stop it. Knock it
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
But if you're going to do direct messaging, then make sure that you are also making it clear that it is actually a personalized message. So by the way, make sure it's a personalized message.
Yep.
Please, dear God, do not hire these agencies that do it for you. And I'm sorry
Nope.
to any of you agencies out there who may be listening. Please do not run direct messaging campaigns on LinkedIn. LinkedIn direct messages should be from one human to another human. Period. Stop. Just knock it off. LinkedIn is a very inconvenient platform for doing direct messaging on. In fact, if someone messaged me on LinkedIn, I always just say, email me.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's my email address. I'm
Here's my
happy.
email.
Like,
Yeah.
publish my
I
email
agree with
address
you.
online. It's not
Yeah.
hard to find me.
Right.
Let's move it over there because I will be able to respond to you in a more timely fashion. I
Yep.
will not miss
Yep.
messages.
Yep.
If you send it on LinkedIn, I miss them because there's so much spam in there. I
Yep.
don't look at them very
Yep.
often. It's hard to
Yep.
mark something for follow-up. If it comes in
Yep.
my inbox, I just
Yep.
flag it and say, okay, I
Right.
can't respond right now, but I'll respond at the end of the day or
Yep.
tomorrow morning, whenever I'm
Yep.
doing my next batch of responses. You can't do that on LinkedIn. Same reason I don't accept text messages from anybody. I don't even give anybody a real text number. Okay, you have the real text number. Fine. I as soon as I started saying it, I could see the gears churning in your head. And you were gonna brag about the fact that you are one of like 5 people who has my actual real
In
deal
fairness,
text.
though, it did take 6 years to get it.
Would you like to share with listeners why you got it? We'll tell that story another day.
I will definitely tell that story another day. Yes.
Yep. In any case, so do we have other advice on LinkedIn while we're at it, or should we just
Yeah, I
hit
think
stop?
it's don't be gross. Don't use AI to write your comments. If you're going to produce new content there, I love the idea of testing out, a topic or an idea just as a short post that you discussed and doing that. Repurpose other content. And you really only have to do something once a week. It doesn't have to be every day.
Right, for fresh content. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you should be on there every day,
Yeah.
commenting, liking, doing things like
New
that. And
stuff.
and and
Yeah.
and from a networking perspective, a
Yes.
business development perspective, it's fantastic because
Yes.
when you hit like on a post, what happens? That person gets a notification. When you comment, what happens? That person gets a notification.
Yep.
When you tag them, they get a notification.
Yep.
You can write recommendations. They get a notification. They get a warm, fuzzy feeling. There are
Yep.
so many things that you can do with LinkedIn to just stay on someone's radar. And it doesn't require a lot of, I mean, literally just hitting like. If you've got people who you would like to work with, just periodically hit like on one of their posts.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's so simple, and yet
It's
it
so
will
simple.
keep your name out there
Yep.
so that they're like, oh, right.
Yep. It's a great idea. Yeah. So
Keep
use
it simple.
LinkedIn.
Doesn't need to be really
Simple.
complicated.
Yep. I like it.
So, all right. Well, we'll keep it really simple and draw this episode to a close. I'm Chip Griffin,
I'm Jenny Dietrich.
and it depends.